Hey, what's going on? And this video is a video on compiler design, which is a course that's being given at the Stony Brook University as a graduate student course. And these courses that I'm talking about in each video are designed to help me understand a little bit more about all the courses that are being taken and get a better understanding as a whole on why I want to go to school for graduate school for computer science. And it's not just about web development, which is like what I actually started doing as a programmer. So if you're not necessarily familiar with that and you want to find out a little bit more information, please look at the first video in this playlist. All right, so basically that being said, let's go into compiler design. What is compiler design? This course basically talks about advanced topics and compilation, which include memory management, data flow analysis, code optimization, just-in-time compilation, and selected topics from compilation of object-oriented designs. So it does have a prerequisite. It looks like it has 304 and 307, which I actually jotted here but didn't look up. But this looks like a pretty fulfilling topic. Understanding how to use a compiler is pretty standard in programming, especially when you have like a Java virtual machine that compiles all your code before it gets turned into machine code. Or just compiling code from an interpreter standpoint. How do you turn data from text into one thing to the other? Like, what are the ways of being more efficient? So you could kind of figure out that, and understanding just-in-time compilation is actually something I had to worry about working with in a framework called Angular, which took advantage of a programming language called TypeScript, which is pretty much JavaScript, but it uses a compiler, but it's also a transpiler that will transpile the code into JavaScript. So this allowed, it was another way to get developers to write cleaner code, and then and to give people that JavaScript developers that flavor of like writing code in Java or in C or in C++ or C, mostly C++. So, and people who come from C++ and Java background could quickly jump into this seat or into these particular roles and do relatively well without having to worry too much about the idea of working as a programmer. The one thing about compiler design, though, is that I haven't necessarily defined a compiler. So I'm thinking that I would actually have to focus more on how a compiler even starts out being designed, and looking for information about compiler design is probably going to be much easier to do these days. In fact, there's a lot of talks about things. There's a talk about the compiling Angular code that I actually was interested in, and I would watch a couple of these videos before even my first week in the class, because it would help get my mind revolved around. The way I think is that I actually take real world topics, real world videos and examples, and try to slowly move them into the theoretical parts of understanding something, and instead of doing it the other way around, which is like starting with the textbook. Using Amazon, for example, to find simpler topics about that, and then slowly moving into something that's more complex, or just enough to get through the class and get a good grade, and be able to take something from that class and apply it to someplace else. So that's kind of like how I really look at learning. So this course here may not be that complex, as a course, but I do know that compiling a compiler is probably very intensive when it comes down to making sure that you are managing your memory, data flow, and you're also optimizing your code and making sure that it's coming out properly, without very little issues, because as data, if you don't want to have your compile time to be longer than it took to write the code, right? That's not something you want to basically do. And you also want to be able to, you know, you leverage every part of it as you possibly can. So that's basically my little blurb right there. Thanks a lot for listening. Next video is going to be about computing with logic. This is actually going to be given by the department head. I actually wrote down his name. Ramakrishnan is the actual guy that is the head of the computer science of the department. I think he's like the director of he's pretty up there. I remember I've seen his name a few times, so when I saw his name up there, that's pretty interesting. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about that. So hopefully see you guys in that video.